Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're looking at a wildly high-stakes chapter of the ancient Indian epic, the Mahabharata. We're zeroing in on the story of the invincible Bhishma. And wow, this is a tale that perfectly blends high-octane ancient warfare, incredibly strict moral codes, and, well, a completely crushing twist of fate. Seriously, it's a profound look at power, duty, and the ultimate fragility of human strength. So to really grasp what's going on here, we first need to look at the immediate crisis facing the Kuru dynasty. We've got this young king named Vichitravirya, and he has finally come of age. But the real power and the real heavy lifting is resting squarely on the shoulders of his older, completely invincible brother, Bhishma. Bhishma's essentially ruling as a regent, taking orders from his mother, Satyavati. And right now, he is under immense, absolutely crushing pressure to secure queens for the dynasty to keep that royal bloodline alive. And right at that moment, he hears about a massive event going down in the city of Varanasi. It turns out the king of Kasi is holding a swayambara for his 3 daughters, who are famously described as being as beautiful as celestial nymphs. Now, if you're not familiar, a swayamvara is this grand, ancient self-choice ceremony. Monarchs from all over the known world are invited, they gather in this sprawling, glittering assembly, and the princesses literally get to choose their husbands right out of the crowd. So, how does Bhishma handle this delicate diplomatic event? Well, he doesn't bring an army. He actually arrives at this massive gathering of kings in a single chariot, completely alone, just acting on behalf of his younger brother. And when Bhishma arrives, he doesn't just quietly slip into the back of the crowd. No, he stops his chariot and proceeds to give these assembled kings a very intense lecture on the ancient forms of marriage. He runs through everything from mutual consent and parental approval to much darker, forceful methods like buying, drugging, or just straight-up abduction. It's a stark reminder of how incredibly different and frankly shocking ancient cultural norms were compared to what we're used to today. But here is the absolutely crucial point. Bhishma loudly declares that while the learned might applaud peaceful forms, the ancient sages say the most prized wife is one taken away by sheer force, right from the middle of a massive concourse of invited kings. Therefore, ye monarchs, I bear away these maidens hence by force. Strive ye to the best of your might to vanquish me or to be vanquished. You monarchs, I stand here resolved to fight. Okay, so with that philosophical justification out of the way, Bhishma lays down this booming, legendary challenge. He literally just scoops the 3 princesses up into his single chariot, glares at the thousands of heavily armed monarchs, and essentially says, I'm taking them, stop me if you can. I mean, talk about an astonishing display of absolute confidence. He crashes the royal wedding, claims the brides for his brother, and just speeds his chariot away, directly challenging the pride of literally every single king in attendance. As you can probably guess, absolute chaos erupts. The challenged monarchs jump up, slapping their arms and biting their lips in pure, unadulterated wrath. They're frantically casting off their fancy wedding ornaments and strapping on their heavy armor. The ancient text actually describes the motion of their brilliant armor as looking like meteoric flashes in the sky. Their eyes are red with rage, they're calling for their own handsome chariots and fine horses, and with uplifted weapons, they launch into this incredibly high-speed pursuit of the retreating Kuru chief. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer, staggering scale of the conflict that follows. The math here is almost impossible to wrap your head around. On one side, you have the assembled kings of the ancient world with their massive armies, unleashing a volley of 10,000 arrows simultaneously. And on the exact opposite side, you have Bhishma, one man, one chariot. The odds are completely ridiculously impossible, and yet, the narrative is about to show us that raw numbers mean absolutely nothing when you're up against Bhishma's unmatched martial skill. The text breaks down this battle with a kind of deadly mathematical precision. Let's trace this volley exchange, because it's wild. 10,000 shafts rain down on Bhishma. But before those arrows can even reach him, he counters with a shower of his own arrows, blocking them completely mid-air. Then, he goes on the offensive, piercing every single monarch with 3 shafts. The kings retaliate, managing to pierce Bhishma with 5 shafts each. But Bhishma just absorbs this, checks their advance, and hits every contending king with 2 more shafts. He is moving so incredibly fast that he's slicing off bows, flagstaffs, and armor by the thousands. His lightness of hand is so extraordinary that even his enemies, the very people he is slaughtering, literally start to loudly applaud his skill on the battlefield. So, having completely routed this massive crowd of kings, Bhishma is suddenly summoned from behind. It's King Salya, a mighty warrior rushing in like a mad elephant. They lock into this intense one-on-one duel, The rest of the crowd actually stops just to watch them. Salya manages to cover Bhishma in thousands of shafts, drawing huge cheers from the crowd. But, well, this just makes Bhishma angry. He commands his charioteer to drive straight at Salya. First, Bhishma uses the mythical Varuna weapon to afflict Salya's horses. Then, he slays the charioteer, and follows that up by unleashing the Indra weapon to completely destroy the steeds. Salya is totally, undeniably bested. But the final move is the most telling part of all this. Bhishma spares his life. He proves his absolute supremacy, leaves the king alive, and the remaining monarchs just pack up and go home. The aftermath of this is almost unbelievable. Bhishma, after taking on the combined might of the known world's kings, arrives back at the capital of Hastinapura. He passes through forests and rivers, bringing the daughters of Kasi home as tenderly as if they were his own sisters. And the source text makes a point to note a really vital detail. He achieved this violent, chaotic, massive victory without a single scratch on his own person. He's perfectly intact. He truly is invincible. So, he presents the accomplished maidens to his brother, the young king Vichitravirya, completely ready to prepare the grand wedding. Now, I really want you to hold that image of the invincible, bloodless warrior in your mind, because just as the dust of the battlefield settles, the pacing of our story drastically shifts. The physical warfare is over, sure, but as Bhishma begins the wedding preparations in consultation with his mother, an entirely different, incredibly quiet, and deeply personal conflict arises. We are pivoting straight from the roar of chariots to a sudden, extremely complex ethical dilemma. The eldest of the three princesses, Amba, steps forward. The text specifically notes that she approaches Bhishma with a soft smile. And right there, in front of everyone, she reveals a secret that completely upends the entire violent conquest Bhishma just went through. She confesses that she had already, in her heart, chosen the king of Salba to be her husband. Her father had approved of it, and if the Swayamvara had just proceeded normally, she would have chosen him. She looks right at Bhishma, the very man who just abducted her by force, and simply says, "You know the dictates of virtue. Knowing this, do as you like." This is such a fascinating character moment. You see, Bhishma isn't just some brute force of nature. He is strictly bound by the dictates of virtue and honor. Confronted with Amba's truth, the invincible warrior pauses. He actually consults with the Brahmanas, the learned scholars of the Vedas. And after some reflection, he immediately pivots from violent abductor right back to an honorable ruler. He fully respects her prior commitment and gives her a highly honorable release, permitting Amba to go and do exactly as she wishes. Okay, so with Amba gone, that leaves the two younger sisters, Ambika and Ambalika. Bhishma bestows them with all due rights upon his younger brother, Vichitravirya, and the text paints this picture of extreme youthful beauty and royal perfection. The brides are described as tall, with a complexion of molten gold and curly black hair. And crucially, they are actually thrilled with the arrangement. They view Vichitravirya, who supposedly has the beauty of the celestial twins, as a husband entirely worthy of them, and they quickly become deeply devoted to him. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that for all the violence, all the abducted brides, and the massive clash of armies, it all actually seems to have paid off perfectly. The young prince and his beautiful new brides live together in a state of absolute uninterrupted joy and luxury for exactly 7 years. The bloodline seems totally secure, the Kuru dynasty is thriving in peace, everything is great. But here is the crushing, tragic irony of this entire story. Just think about the flow of events we just covered. Bhishma defeats entire armies without a single scratch. He secures a grand royal wedding against all odds. They experience 7 years of perfect luxury. And then, entirely out of nowhere, while still in the prime of his youth, King Vichitravirya contracts phthisis, which is what we know today as tuberculosis. And despite his celestial beauty, and despite all the friends, relatives, and physicians frantically trying to effect a cure, the young king dies. The ancient text uses this beautiful hunting metaphor, the king perished, setting like the evening sun. Just think about the profound weight of this outcome and what it tells us about power and human fragility. Bhishma, the mighty car warrior who could catch 10,000 arrows midair, who could defeat the world's kings without taking a single scratch just to protect his brother's future, was totally, utterly powerless against a microscopic illness. His sword and his arrows couldn't fight a disease. All of his violent conquests, all of those sacrifices were totally undone by nature. The invincible warrior is left plunged into deep anxiety and grief, forced to perform funeral rites for the very brother he fought so insanely hard to provide for. So, what does this all mean? Well, it leaves us with a massive cliffhanger that changes the course of the entire epic. The young king is dead. The beautiful queens are newly widowed. There is absolutely no heir to the throne, and the invincible Bhishma, he has taken a strict vow of celibacy himself, meaning he cannot claim the throne or sire the next generation. All that warfare, the abductions, the honor codes, it all led to a total dead end. So, with the king suddenly dead and no heir in sight, what will become of the mighty Kuru dynasty now that their future has literally turned to ash? It's a fascinating question and one that sets the perfect stage for the massive conflicts yet to come. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.